Hey guys, Krusty Old Crow back again today to do a tactical perspective toy review on a figure I didn't think was coming today, but he did come. We are going to do number 139 of the G.I. Joe Classified line. I am, of course, talking about Chip, Raptor, Talon, and General Ledger, his pet peregrine falcon, which I picked up at my local GameStop today as I was doing my closing rounds. And my closing rounds, I meant I wanted to go and cheer myself up because I have a package I've been waiting on all week, and I've gotten shipping notices after shipping notices, delayed by 24 hours, delayed by 24 hours. I'm on the third shipping notice that said it would be here by 3 o'clock today. It's 2 o'clock today. It's not here yet. And I am, of course, talking about my Valorverse mystery box, which I was very excited for and was really hoping to make a big production out of. And still do hope so, because I wanted to do something on Saturday about the figures I got with that on a live. But today, it hasn't shown up yet. I said, you know what, Crow, you got to get out of the house. You got to cheer yourself up. See, and I do recall GameStop has deals on Fridays. I said, why don't you go see if they had anything interesting on deal? And while they didn't have anything on their $5 figure wall or any of their deals that appealed to me, they did say, hey, Crow, something came in for you. Raptor. And I was like, oh, okay. I was expecting perhaps Road Pig, but Raptor is an interesting one because Raptor is one I did not have as a kid, but it was while I was still dwindling in the G.I. Joe line in 1987. I was about 14 years old. Yeah, going on 14. So I had stopped buying so much for myself and was more buying them for my cousin to watch him play with them, but I enjoyed seeing the package, reading the things. I was still into Joe, but it was that age where you weren't into it anymore. Comics had taken over, but this guy was one that I had passed on that my cousin did end up getting, and this is where I was saying, well, now they're jumping the shark, the old Happy Days term for when a company goes overboard, and this was it with me. A man in a bird suit was now upon the threat matrix of Cobras, ninjas, and robots, and all sorts of great characters they had. Now they had a guy flying around in a bird suit, and I thought, okay, wait a second, that's comic book stuff, and that is crossing over, and I'm not ready for it. Lo and behold, now, years and years and years, decades later, as a new revisitor, we'll say, to the G.I. Joe collection, the way that Hasbro has made it so appealing in the classified and retro line, I have a new respect for the figure. I just still remain confused by the character of Chip Talon. But we're going to open this guy up. I'm hoping to go somewhere more scenic with it, take some photos, have a little talk about him, go through that file card, do the head-to-toe review, and be done with it. Maybe by the time I'm done, some other company of who we, I guess, shouldn't talk about during a tactical perspective on a Hasbro product, maybe that package will be there in that video. You should watch out for as well. But I'll be right back with showing you all I need to know and need to talk about this particular 139 Cobra guy called Chip Raptor Talon and his bird. All right, see you in a minute. All right, so here we have Chip Raptor Talon, not currently holding his animal companion, General Ledger. We'll look at Ledger minimally in this. He's a lot like Aspera in that he is a pet companion for the figure, but with very little articulation or purpose other than just kind of being like much like a knife or a holster or a pouch. But let's get into the file card, because we're going to find out that Raptor is an enigma wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a big bird suit, and somebody who clearly is going through some sort of revision as we look at this file card. Now, guys, if you've been following my show for a while, you'll come to know that the file card to me is like the start point for every G.I. Joe action figure in the classified line or retro, sourcing back to the original 82 to 94 line that they are reflecting in it. Without the file card, you really don't know the character as I see it, and that's just the way I like to go about things. I mention it now because this file card is a heaping mess that needs to be rewritten because of just the simple changes they've made to the classified version of this character. So the file card reads like this. Codename Raptor, the Cobra Falconer, File name at the time was unknown. Raptor was a yuppie tax consultant who took up falconry as a pastime and soon became obsessed with the avian blood sport. He discovered that breeding bigger and stronger birds and equipping them with steel-tipped talons, they were capable of attacking a much more profitable game. Caught by poaching on a cobra mink ranch by Destro, Raptor joined the ranks of the Cobra Legions and began working on developing a bird of prey strong enough to attack a G.I. Joe. Raptor doesn't have any delusions about what he is, even if he's dressing up in that bird suit of his and spends most of his time in a giant bird cage. Those are a means to an end, and a bottom line for Raptor is his non-taxable profit margin. I mean, where do you even start? Okay, so by the file card, we didn't have an identity, and now we know his identity is Chip Talon. With the nickname Raptor. So the last name Talon and the definite physical appearance of this is that the guy is of First Nations descent, right? So we've given him a first name and now we've given him an ethnicity. He belongs to a certain cultural group. And we assume this, and I say the word assume, from the tribal type tattooing that's occurring on the character and just the comfort levels by which there seems to be. In any other world, that would be cultural appropriation, but there seems to be an embrace to the First Nations kind of spiritual nature ties here. I'm trying to beat around the bush. The guy's a freaking bird. And the explanation for him being a bird is that he used to be a yuppie and he got bored with that. So he took up falconeering and then decided that he could be a bird and wanted to build a bigger bird to destroy Joe. This is all the file card tells me about this. This is utterly insane to me. But he comes from an insane era where, having a villain with a total over-the-top identity was not unheard of. The creators grew up with them, and they brought them to the table for us, and we grew up with them. But it's also the time where the darker side of the adult life was taking time in the 87 era. We were just getting over Miami Vice, and this guy just screamed, bad Miami Vice victim. This is what happens to the yuppie in Miami Vice that tried to be a drug dealer, didn't make it, and got swept up in a moment, and thank God they decided to re-envision this, because instead of reminding me of that whole nonsense of Miami Vice and the old cartoons, I'm actually getting a Lou Diamond Phillips kind of vibe coolness to this character that probably wasn't there when he was there in 87 in the original, because they couldn't capture any kind of good personality in the sculpt and still allow him to look like this bird toy figure. Different everything back then. So before we get to the head to toe, I gotta go with the like, share, subscribe. If you're new to the channel, I am trying to grow the channel, and if you're old to the channel, hey, thanks for being there. But we gotta please that algorithm and try and keep it going. So if you're enjoying this content, you want to see more reviews, more customs, more conversions, more opinions, more whatever the Crow has here in Crow Country, you feel free, hit like, share, subscribe, leave comments, and share these videos wherever you feel that they are going to be valued. Thank you. Let's do that head to toe. So for starters, you can see he's got that cowl that is designed to look like the falcon, the raptor that he is. It's a strange thing for him to look eye to eye into his bird. If I were the bird, I'd keep the hood on, but it is nicely sculpted and easily removable like all cowls in the classified line. Once removed, which you couldn't do with the original figure, you will see a more stylish approach to the Raptor character. Chip, as you can call him, Chip Talon, has that faux hawk look, some lengthy hair at the back, which does affect his neck extension. Makes it difficult for him to look up and forward when you're doing a flying pose. So his Superman pose, lying on his belly, arms out, looking ahead, just doesn't work. He's always looking down at the ground, which I suppose is falcon-like in its own respect, where he's always looking for prey, so he'd be always looking down. But it's a long way to go to say the guy can't look up because he's got sick-ass hair. But the mask that he wears, much like Nightwing in Batman figures, is not removable. And he's got a very stern expression on his face. There's no alternate head sculpts included with this one, nor would one be necessary. I just find the head is actually giving more personality to the character that contradicts the old file card. So I really hope hope Hasbro does rewrite this character, because he certainly doesn't come off as an urban yuppie type to me. He comes off as a First Nations warrior, a guy with a grudge, and perhaps the psychopathic technologies provided by Mars Industry are working that angry look on his face, giving him some confidence. If you walk down that line, you'll see the first little piece of color that the bright color isn't just the cowl on the bird, but it's the necklace on his leg. He's got some sort of red-hearted tooth on there, which draws the eye right away. And once you notice that, it's easy to notice now that he's got these tribal tattoos that follow his shoulder and breast line downwards across his abdomen downwards. These multi-brownish, reddish kind of markings, and they also carry over to his arms. So it's neat. They're giving him an identity he didn't quite have before, but probably should have when he was originally created. Not necessarily appropriating the culture, but seeming to be a part of that culture, just in his new design. So it is a modernized take on this. If you keep following it down, his uniform has changed. He's got this nice feathered shoulder harness piece that, was probably tried to be reflected in the original, but down the arms, we talked about the tattoos. He's got these gauntlets on which he can mount the falcon, and just normal good arm articulation and posability, no problems at all with any of that stuff. In fact, you can get a lot of poses with this guy, which you would need to do a lot of flight photography. But on that subject, I can tell you that balance will be an issue if you're using a lot of different flight stands. He's a ground pose and reinforced flyer. Basically, you need a heavy weighted stand to hold this guy up. While he does have good balance, and those wings can help do balance tricks, putting him on a flight stand I found to be kind of an obstacle, actually. So if I treat this buck as though it were a really good buck, and it is, we talk about those brown pants being plain, those boots being glorious. It's weird that the feet have molded in falcon's feet, like Raptor feet on there. It shows me Hasbro has no intention to reuse some of these pieces, such as the face and the shoes. But there's some really unique features on here on this character. A lot of feathers and details went into this. Some of the subtle loves I have for this are the belt buckle, which is, of course, a falcon, and the left-handed holster that you can swing around. You can hide flight stands with it. You can have it in a variety of different positions. It's a very versatile holster for the waistline, not fixed to one point. I do like the way the bayonet slides into its scabbard, and just the standard pistol and bayonet. Nothing fancy about them. You'll see them in the pictures. I haven't really talked much about the falcon because there's not much to talk about. It's hooded. It doesn't have any other features. It pegs into the arm, so they did spend the consideration to put the holes into either wrist, but there really isn't much to it. I liken it a lot to a Spera that goes with the Tripwire and McLeod set from Hasbro. Really isn't much. The big focus of this, of course, is that Mars type, I think, technical pattern wing set, which is the new modernization on Raptor's flight abilities, far different than what we saw back in the 80s. Back then, those wings were just a plastic cape, and the red necklace was the most personality you were getting out of that outside of the bird. But here you can see these wings. They will remind you a lot of Spider-Man's Vulture. If you watch the recent Tom Holland Spider-Man movies where Michael Keaton played the Vulture, these wings just scream inspired by. I don't think anyone could even deny it. But you can only have so many great designs for technical wings, and you would definitely have some overlap. These remind me of something, a mix along between that and what Neil Blomkamp would have thrown into Elysium to give guys flying wings of some sort, right? It's a really cool design, very versatile, very posable, lots of different ways to swing it. I think 1, 2, 3, 4 points of articulation per wing, I think, is the standard, if not 5. That's per wing, so 10 just in the posability. You can get all those shielding poses, soaring poses. You see the pictures I've taken in the video. It's a lot of fun to play with. But again, while you can balance them, you probably do want stands or sticky tack to keep them balanced if you're going to try and do some really cool poses. And flight stands, I would suspect, would probably benefit from being weighted or bolted down in some way.
Lastly, we'll talk about the accessories. You'll see in the pictures or in the video posed with the bayonet and the pistol, but here he's got the claws, a very Raptor thing for a very Raptor character. I've talked about the Falcon, I've talked about the hood. I think this character is really cool, so let's start getting into some grading here. On a play grade, I'm going hard 5. It's a flying character, it's a lot of fun to pose, it's a lot of fun to shoot, and just, it's got a lot of personality. On a tactical perspective, or tactical grading, I'm going to go with a 2. This guy's meant for swiping and slashing and getting shot and then mocked. He is a ridiculous concept, a liability to everything, but they've made him look like a dangerous comic rogues gallery villain, and I can appreciate the art design behind it. So the je ne sais quoi factor, that third final grade for this, is going to be a 4. I think I respect the fact that they're trying to give better identity to a character that very much seemed insane and very risky character to bring into an actual culture without being an insult to that culture. They're rolling the dice, and I think they've done well by giving this a lot of cool details. I mean, he's a hard one for me to pass on my shelf, but he's fun as hell to play with. I'm glad I got him. Guys, that's the review. Thanks for coming by. Make sure you watch for the next stuff I got coming out. Mystery box. Now, don't you guys go tripping over no like buttons or subscribe switches on your way out. And we'll see you soon.